when you say the Islamic Republic of Iran respects human rights, one female protester says that she was detained inside a Revolutionary Guard facility for more than a month and raped by 3 different men. She went to a cleric, a mullah, afterwards because she was having suicide thoughts. She was so upset. CNN spoke with that cleric. Is that acceptable? Is it acceptable for a woman, whatever she's done, to be arrested and raped? And there are many, many, many reports of sexual abuse in this situation against women and men.
Firstly, in the peaceful demonstrations in the fall, no one was arrested.
So you're just denying that?
However, in those protests that had become violent, some individuals, some of whom had entered Iran from the outside and were using firearms and killing the police, were arrested. You do know that the Supreme Leader actually issued an amnesty, and all those who were imprisoned were released, with the exception of those who had killed someone or were being sued. Regarding the Iranian woman that you mentioned, I cannot confirm it. There have been so many such baseless claims made on social media and in media.
Okay, these are not baseless and they weren't on the internet. CNN spoke to a cleric, a religious person inside your country and got this story.
We have seen some of CNN's reports that are targeted and false.
That's not true. We report the facts and we report the truth, and that's why you're sitting here with me, Mr. Foreign Minister. Can we move on? I want to ask you, you have a wife, you may have sisters, do you have daughters? I want to know what you think about peaceful protests for change in the way women are able to live their lives in Iran. The peaceful act of removing a scarf. What do they say to you, the women in your family? What do they say to you?
First of all, I would like to say that in Iran, we have the strongest democracy, especially compared to many other countries. There are standards and rules and regulations in every country, and the women have an important role in Iran, and they gained that role after the victory of the Islamic Revolution in Iran. Today, the outside networks, they are turning the issue of hijab and headscarf into a political crisis. Women in Iran, within the framework of rules and regulations, enjoy extraordinary freedoms.
See, the thing is, I kind of know about this, so I also know that at the beginning of the revolution, there was no hijab mandate. Those who wanted to wear a hijab and a chador could, those who didn't want to didn't. Only several months or maybe a year after did the Ayatollah say, no, all you women have to go under the hijab. So again, I'm trying to find out what you and what the government is going to do. Because even Ayatollah Khamenei recently has said, women who do not wear a hijab are not irreligious. They are not violating religion. Some other people have said that. We've heard from the former Speaker of Parliament, Mr. Larijani, who at the beginning said, do we really need to make all this chaos over a hijab? So I want to know whether you accept it, because it's also traditional women, older women who've gone in the streets. It's men, it's young, it's very different than previous protests. Do you accept that women can have peaceful demonstrations for change and for their own rights? Do they have the rights? You say that it's the most developed democracy. Do women have the right, peacefully?
Unfortunately, in such issues, their approach is one of double standards. Let me ask you a question.
But I'm actually quoting your own leaders, Mr. Foreign Minister. I don't want to get into a discussion. I'm asking you a question about
I
your
want to ask
own
you a question
Supreme
before
Leader.
answering your question. Let's see where all this started. An Iranian girl called Mahsa Amini. She passed away.
Because she was manhandled by the morality police.
Just a moment, please.
Yes, a young girl, Mahsa Amini, passed away. They turned her into a symbol in order to change the system in Iran, in the name of defending women's freedom. My question is this. Ms. Shireen Abu Akleh, who is a colleague of yours and is a journalist, she's a lady, she's a Christian, and in broad daylight she was martyred by the Israeli regime. Who defended her?
Oh, Mr. Foreign Minister, the whole world Everybody defended her, and everybody condemned her death.
The result?
Everybody
What was the
condemned her
result
death.
of that?
I'm not getting into an international...
Why didn't they allow the issue to be raised in the Security
Everybody
Council?
condemned her death, Mr. Foreign Minister. I'm literally just asking you whether in Iran you believe women have the right to peacefully protest. And, by the way, as you know better than I do, sometimes the morality police are out being aggressive, and sometimes the authorities say, just take it easy, all right? And what do we see? Since this presidency, we have seen a crackdown on women and their dress and their rights. Why? Why does any regime need to prove itself on the back of women's rights, their own bodily space? Why? Why is that
My request to you, look, you're supposed to interview me, but you're actually having a confrontation with me.
This is one last question, then I need to move on.
This is not an interview.
I'm trying to get an answer.
And this is not the way to conduct an interview.
I just want an answer, that's all.
Women in Iran have all the necessary required freedoms within the framework of the law.
I'm trying to figure out what
Do you
now
ask
are
other
the
countries?
confines of the
Do you
law.
ask the other countries who are in our region but are allies of the United States the same kinds of questions that you're asking me about the women's hijab? The issue in Iran at the moment is not that of hijab. What has hijab got to do with the MEK terrorists? Ask them. What is this hijab they are wearing? And they are based in Europe and in the United States. And this woman who wanted to come and become president in Iran, why is it that she has established compulsory hijab in her terrorist organization? They are friends of the United States. They're friends of the White House. Why should there be a double standard?
Okay, so I realize that we've probably reached the end of this little bit because you're not going to answer any more. But as you know, your government's reaction, violent reaction against women, has changed foreign policy and your relationship with many countries in the world. More sanctions have been leveled against you. The whole Iran nuclear deal is no longer willing to be negotiated. Even if you were willing, they're not willing anymore, the US and Europe. But first I want to ask you about another really important thing, and that is about Iranian weapons to Russia that are targeting Ukrainians during this war. Can you tell me why it is Iran's policy to send drones and other military support to President Putin that are used to kill civilians inside Ukraine? Why are you sending drones to violating all sorts of sanctions, but still also causing a huge amount of death?
Before that, I would like to say that women in Iran, they constitute a very important part of our society. Iranian women, during our revolutionary years, have turned into a very dynamic and active force. And we will not allow an active Iranian woman who abides by her values to be used by some others, so that she follows their standards, and under the pretext of hijab creates insecurity, riots, and terror. Today, Iranian women have a very special position, not only in Iran, but throughout the world. Wherever they are in the world, they are among the elite. Therefore, we must not try to diminish this important status that they have. However, with regards to Ukraine, we oppose the war in Ukraine, and we have not sent weapons to either side. And from the very beginning of the war, we have tried to stop the war, so that both sides focus on a political dialogue. This is the same policy that we adopted in the case of Yemen, Afghanistan, and various other countries in crisis. Regarding accusations that have been made against Iran with regards to drones, they're untrue. We have had defense cooperation with Russia in the past, and we continue that cooperation. But we have not provided Russia with any weapons to be used in the war in Ukraine.
Okay, so you've probably seen these pictures, right? So that is a drone, an Iranian drone that was found inside and recovered from Ukraine. This as well, with the president of Ukraine standing next to it. This they have compared to Iran. This is the Ukrainians.
Who says that?
This is the Ukrainians, and this is from open sources from like Yemen and other.
How can they prove this drone with just a photograph?
Are you denying it? Okay. Are these two the same things? This.
Let me explain it to you.
I will explain to you.
Okay, fine. But that's what the Ukrainians say, And those are the pictures of the same drone that you all display at military shows and fairs, and that have been discovered in Yemen and other places where you are active.
I will explain to you what happened.
A few months ago, I telephoned the Ukrainian foreign minister, and I said, "What are these baseless accusations you are making about Iran?" And he said, "We actually have documents that Iranian Shahed drones are being used by Russia in Ukraine." I said to him, "Look, we are ready for your military team and the Iranian military team to sit down and look at these documents and then make judgments." And we arranged to have such a meeting in Oman. And Ukrainian and Iranian military teams, they sat down, and they were showing us some very blurry, obscure satellite pictures. And they were alleging that these are Iranian drones.
But what I showed you wasn't blurry and obscure.
Our experts examined these pictures, and the pictures had no connection with Iran whatsoever. And for 4 months, we have been waiting for the second round of talks. And we expect them to come and present clearer documents. But the Ukrainian team keeps saying, "In 2 weeks, soon," but nothing has happened.
So the thing is, you did say, the Iranian government did say, that you have sent Russia Shahed drones, but you said before the invasion. But apparently, according to Western diplomats, you've sent many after the invasion. Hundreds of Iranian drones have been launched, and over 100 of them, according to the Ukrainians, have struck their targets. They are civilian targets inside Ukraine. That is why Russia is offering to trade MiG fighters, that's the latest news, for drones and more things. Another Western diplomat says, yes,
your question
you have
is
sent.
too long.
I know it's too long, but I'm trying to say the facts, because you say it's not happening, so I need your answer. That's why there's sanctions against you.
We asked our Russian counterparts, and they said, "We have not used Iranian-manufactured drones in Ukraine." And we said to the Ukrainian counterparts, "If you have any documented proof, show it to us. We will look into it." But the Ukrainian side did not show us any strong proof to substantiate that claim, with the exception of some media accusations. And I can tell you explicitly, as the foreign minister of the Islamic Republic of Iran, that we are against war. We are against war in Ukraine, against war in Afghanistan, against war in Yemen, against war in Palestine. And our president has made great efforts in order to stop the war in Ukraine. A few months ago, Mr. Macron asked the president of our country to come and mediate, because he has good relations with Russia. And then the president, Mr. Raisi, sent me to Moscow, and I spoke with Russian officials. And we are continuing our efforts. We think war is not a solution, neither in Ukraine nor anywhere else in the world.